Trent.
Parth, it's been a while. You're looking well.
Thank you. It's been 3 weeks for the listeners.
But how long has it been for us? Far longer.
We haven't been together since December 30th, and it's, as of recording, February 6th.
This is the conclusion of Craft Service's first ever break.
Yeah, but we're ready to go.
We didn't do episodes for a month, as hopefully some of you noticed. But I'd say we're coming back with a vengeance. We're here, and we've got some stuff. We're going to continue to be a movie podcast. Is that so?
Yeah. And, well, Trent, should we just get what we've been eating out of the way really quick?
Yeah, I get that was our little welcome back. But yeah, Parth, what have you been eating?
Well, Trent, I had come back from a shoot. I woke up at 6 o'clock to shoot the sunrise on a farm for a documentary I'm doing for class.
Yep.
And it was 7 degrees outside.
Oh, it's cold.
And that was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And so, as you can imagine, me and friend of the show, Sophia Alexis, who also helped, friend of the show, but not yet on the show, so not really a friend of the show, Sarah Brotman,
Yep.
and friend of Parth and friend of the show, but not friend of the show, Tom Merkel, are also very tired because they helped me this weekend. And so we heated up a frozen pizza.
Nice. What brand, if you don't mind my asking?
Kirkland from Costco.
Nice. There should be a term for people who are our friends, off the show, but they've never been on the show, you know? This friend of the show implies that they've been on the show.
Yeah, so friends of the show and friends off the show.
Right?
That's
a good way to
little
put it.
wordplay.
I came from a location scout for a thing that you're also working on. And as part of that, George, friend off the show, had to buy us burgers because he made us wake up at 8 a.m. to drive to the woods.
Was it good?
Cheeseburger. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that. But you ready? We have a pretty tasty episode coming up. Speaking of,
yeah, we should probably just cue right into the intro.
Yeah, no. Since we're all tired and cranky now, we should cut to a recording of us from several months ago when we were all peppy and excited, young little film students, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Cue the intro. Welcome back to Craft Services. Yeah,
just like that.
Yeah, no, you listeners don't know, but usually after we say cue the intro, Trent and I have a little chat, but I just went straight in.
Yeah, usually there's several minutes of it. I wouldn't even say small talk, medium talk. You know, Parth and I are close friends. We talk about things, but there was literally a nanosecond in between him saying cue the intro and then saying welcome back to the show.
I think speed is the name of the game today. You know what I mean? If you can't tell,
you've got the need for speed.
I do. My favorite film. If you can't tell by the deadness in our voice, you know.
It's funny because we took the month-long break because we claimed to be so tired, and now here's the living proof, you know.
Yeah,
but that's not a good sign, being that now with this level of exhaustion, we have to move forward and continue to create the show as promised.
But don't mistake this tiredness for lack of enthusiasm for what's to come, because today's a pretty juicy episode.
Yeah, I'd say juicy is the right word. I'd say this is sort of a big episode for us.
This is a very big episode for us. Is this the first movie we had an interview so long we've broken up the interview for?
Yeah, so I think the interview was, an hour and 45 minutes long?
Yeah.
And that was, I'd say, largely due to the fact that we were essentially interviewing 3 people at once. Parth, what are the names of the guests on the show this week, on our show, the podcast?
Well, Trent, thank you for asking, as I know the answer. First of all, we have Danelle Davenport, storyboard artist. Then we have Rob McCallum, also storyboard artist. And third of all, we have Oscar Wright, who was sort of the head storyboard artist and brother of the writer/director, Edgar Wright.
Yeah. And they all were super great. And because of how great they were, we just wanted to keep chatting, you know. And it went on for a very, very long time. And we thought, that you, the humble listener at home, doesn't want to listen to an episode that's essentially 2 hours long,
Yeah.
because that's hell on earth. And so we thought, as it's twofold logistically, and to buy ourselves some time, because essentially we can just release the Scott Pilgrim, there's 3 parts of the interview, and buy ourselves like 3 weeks worth of episodes. And then at the end of February, we'll release a discussion with a special guest. And who will that special guest be?
Let's save that, shall we? Should we?
Really?
All right, it's my brother. It's my brother. He's a big Scott Pilgrim fan.
I'd say when we first started the show, of course, there's the question of, if we do... Everyone has the movie that they're like, if you do that movie, you have to have me on. And Viraj, that was Viraj's pick.
He loves that movie. And I love this interview. This part 1 of 3 for the interview. It's super cool. They all kind of talk about how they got started in the industry and how they all started to get involved with Scott Pilgrim. And Oscar Wright especially was involved with the project for the longest, so he kind of has the most amount of detail, and it's pretty cool.
Well, Parth, I think we've said enough words for now. So how about we just cut to the interview? Do a little sound effect?
Welcome to the beginning of Scott Pilgrim month.
Yeah, a whole month worth Scott. It's a pretty good movie. So that I guess we're gonna talk about it for a month.
Mm-hmm. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our interview for Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. With us, we have 3 guests, Rob McCallum, Danelle Davenport, and Oscar Wright. Collectively, they've worked on pretty much every movie you've heard of, including It Chapter 1, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and Last Night in Soho. Thank you all for being here.
Well, thank you.
You're very welcome. Nice to be here.
Thank you for having us.
So, just to start off, this is the most amount of guests we've ever had, so I guess whoever wants to answer first can answer first, and we'll go from there. If you guys could all talk about how you first got into the movie industry and specifically into the art department.
Okay, who wants to go first?
How about we start with Rob?
Okay. I used to draw comics when I was at art school. I worked for a comic called Electric Soup alongside now very, very famous comic artist Frank Quitely. And then I also was making my own short films and storyboarding them myself. So when eventually I ended up drawing comics for a few years, I worked for 2000 AD, I drew a logo for DC. I worked for Stan Lee for a couple of years on the Excelsior line, which never came out. Apparently it was the last thing Stan Lee did when he was at Marvel. I didn't know that until about 2 weeks ago, so it was like, it took a while. But because of my comics work, I got to know the editor of 2000 AD, and there was a film director came to Scotland to make a Hallmark movie. And the day after the Stan Lee project got put on hold, after an indefinite hold after 2 years, I got a phone call from this director who'd got my name from the 2000 AD editor as someone that might be able to draw storyboards for him. So I had storyboard samples. Well, I had my own storyboards for my own short films, and I had comic samples to show I could draw properly, because those storyboards were not very fancy. They were just for me. And then I got a job drawing a couple. It was like three Hallmark movies I storyboarded, all in Scotland. And then the 4th one, which I didn't work on, actually was shooting in my hometown, just about 2 minutes down the street from me. Which, the irony is that I didn't need to travel. If I'd worked on that one, it was like, oh well. So I did that, and I started storyboarding things like, but in Scotland there wasn't a huge amount going on, so I was doing like short films and Then I storyboarded the Acid, two of the three shorts, short stories out of the Acid House movie for Paul McGuigan, who I've gone on to work with quite often over the years, on various films. And then I moved to Canada, and you see that no one's got the same story in mind. Just start waving at me if this is boring. But I get set up with an interview. Someone I know set me up with an interview with this guy's company, and I travelled all the way downtown. Took hours because I didn't drive. And I saw this guy for like 3 minutes, and he was in this room full of very miserable, scared-looking people drawing like designs and renders and stuff like that for interior designs and things. And he came out and he said, give me a copy of that, and that. And he left. I was honestly there for 3 minutes and out the door. And I was really, kind of popped, and I was like, oh man, I've travelled all this way and I don't think I'd want to work there. And then travelling, I got a cab and I travelled back, and we were passing by Cinespace Film Studios. And I just said to the cab driver, let me out. And I went and got some photocopies done at the local grocery store. And I went in and I dropped off some samples to various productions that I could get into. And then that was the next day I got a phone call from what ended up being called The Recruit, the Al Pacino, Colin Farrell film. And I did some design work for them, and then I did some storyboards for them, and then it's a very small business, so your name starts getting known. And then I got a call for Bulletproof Monk, the Chow Yun-fat movie. That I started off doing costume design for that, but then the director came in and said, no, you're doing storyboards now. And then that was me. I was just basically gone from job to job ever since. And it's... it wasn't planned. It was sheer luck a lot of the time.
Danelle, if you'd like to.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I think that's more than luck, Rob. I think that's talent and some audacity and courage to go in and just take the bull by the horns and deliver copies of your work. I had started working in theater as a set designer, and I really was more of a dry, painty kind of person, not really a math, rulers, architecture kind of person. And so I just wanted to segue into doing more drawing and painting and stuff like that. And so I just put a bunch of samples together. I had worked on some films and some small things and done things for friends, but I hadn't really done a full-on professional job as a storyboard artist. But I sent my work to an agency here in LA, and they called me in for an interview, and they sent me out that day. As I was in the office interviewing, a call came in to do changes on someone else's boards, and I had to go out that day, and I didn't actually have proper kit. I just had to scramble and look for pencils underneath the mats of my car or something. I was looking at the glove box for drawing materials, and I showed up having prepared by doing all my own research and teaching myself how to storyboard basically by watching films and learning film composition, and then I just had to do it, and I learned on the job. Unfortunately, it was changes on someone else's work, so a lot of the format was provided, and I just had to imitate somebody's style, and I just managed to do that. And from that point on, I just kept working, and so I ended up starting. Oftentimes in LA, we start off doing commercials, and because that's just a voracious industry here, and they need a lot of board artists. So that's sort of where I really learned to storyboard, and then it's interesting because I don't, at least here, I don't really find myself in the art department that often. I've pretty much always been working at home, and occasionally I'll be in the office. In the more recent years, I have been in the office, but I haven't usually been in the art department. I've sort of been in the story department. And recently I've worked with some animation directors who like to work in an animation style. of storyboarding, which means they do a lot of boards, they do a lot of story editing and figuring things out in the boarding process. So I've learned to do. I'm not an animator, but I've learned to do more animation through with boards, which I really, really like to do. It's funny, we were talking about The Shining before we started, and one of the first movies I worked on back in 2001 was Looney Tunes Back in Action, and I had never done animation. I had done tons of drawing, tons of like classical drawing, human beings, animals, but not animation. I didn't know really how to design form at that time. And I had to draw a bunch of Bugs Bunny scenes, and he literally looked like, I would say, I'm not an animator because my Bugs Bunny always looked like Jack Nicholson in The Shining, you know? So I really had to work hard to learn how to move form through space. And that's kind of recently what I've been doing a lot of.
Great. And I guess just Oscar, if you want to.
Mine's a sort of winding road, but I'll keep it short. I always did animation at home. Like both me and my brother used to make short films at home with Super 8, and I toyed with animation, but I loved making stuff, making props and things. So I studied model making, and I got into my first job outside college was a feature film. We were just, labor, basically, cheap labor, straight out of college, model making on a film. And model making was what I did for 2 years until the company I was with went bankrupt. And then, and it was like, 21-year-olds out on the street sort of thing, and during the time I was looking for model making work, my brother started his sort of campaign to make his first film, and I did the title sequence for it, which was animation, and he asked me to do it because I could do it basically, and on a very amateur level, but I taught myself animation, and that was a learning curve just doing that. And this is back in the day when you're drawing on cell, you're drawing on plastic, so it's completely different from nowadays. So I was learning on the job doing that, as we all were, but that job got me loads of work for Sky, actually, a cable channel here, satellite channel actually, but it's cable channel now, and lots of little idents and stuff. Someone saw Edgar's movie, basically had an animation job, a little ident, thought of me, and I got loads of work doing animation idents. And then I kind of got bored with that. You could tell in my work, I love animation to bits. I don't necessarily love doing it. Not being the lone guy doing it, because it was just me, it wasn't a team. I did work on some, one in particular, one feature film as an animator, as an effects animator, and that was an interesting exercise, an interesting, window into that world. But really, my career changed again. So I went from model maker to animator, and then my brother needed he started doing music videos, and when I was an animator, I used to storyboard all my own animations. That was just part of the process, and it was all one thing. And that was much of the fun was planning it, not actually doing it. It was, planning the whole animation was great. Doing it was not great, not fun at all. And then editing it at the end was fun. And I learned a lot in just all of those processes. And then my brother started doing music videos, and I started boarding them and doing little bits of design and stuff and helping him out on those. And then he got Shaun the Dead underway, and we started boarding, and really that's But there's been a lot of design stuff along the way, graphic design, but mostly there's been boarding since then. That's really where my journey into boarding started, and I found myself on. That was all of our first feature. That was our first feature for a lot of us at that stage, and I found myself in the art department, and the production designer who Edgar always uses, Marcus Rowland, fantastic guy and a really fantastic production designer, and he. I think he saw the use, how useful I can be in the art department. So I wasn't squirreled away in a little room, as on some films, storyboarders are squirreled away somewhere, and you don't get to see the other departments. But he wanted me on the team in the department, and it's been that way ever since. And it's really helpful, very helpful, to be in the art department doing boards. It's helpful for everybody, I think, because you get a lot of, you just see how things are progressing along, and you can all help each other. So it's which isn't always the case, but on those particular jobs. So that's how I found myself in the art department, mostly.
So jumping ahead, how did everyone get involved with Scott Pilgrim, and did any of you have an established relationship with the material, because it was like coming out concurrently?
I think I read the first book when I heard that it was coming to town, just out of interest, because someone that ended up working on it that told me that it was coming, they gave a brief synopsis of it, and it just sounded like, oh wait a minute, I should probably read that. That sounds interesting. But then, I really liked the comic. And how did I get involved in it? I had met Edgar and Simon Pegg when I was working on Land of the Dead. They came out to be carnival zombies.
I've forgotten that, yeah.
And there's an artist that I know, Jim Murray, who did some artwork for Spaced. For Simon Pegg's character as a comic artist, and I think it was Jim Murray that they used for that.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
So just purely because it was like, oh, we know the same person, I wanted to just say hi to Edgar, and then I was in my office drawing on Land of the Dead, and Edgar and Simon turned up as zombies at my door and had a wee chat, and chatted with each other a wee bit over the next couple of days while we were filming. I was so exhausted on that movie. It was a lot. I boarded almost everything on it. So then when I heard they were coming, I actually bumped into Edgar on the stairs when he must just have been here scouting, and just had a wee catch up and a hello. And then I think I came in to interview for doing concept art, and I didn't get it, but I did spend probably the next 2.5 hours chatting to Oscar and just kind of, shooting the breeze, and had a nice time. And then I got a call not long after saying that Oscar was kind of needing someone to help out that understood storyboards on the film, and that was me. And I started off doing, I think it was just kind of helping edit stuff, and just because the actual nuts and bolts of like pagination and all that stuff in storyboards is it's like a foreign world to somebody that's not used to it,
It can be an absolute nightmare. And
totally and utterly. And this was a lot of the boards were they ended up digital, but they were drawn analog. I think I ended up using.
You were using the Cintiq.
I had my Cintiq that I ended up thinking this is a better idea to do it on this, because then I can edit while we're doing it.
Yeah.
But
it's the first time I'd seen a Cintiq in action.
It was a tiny one as well.
Yeah.
And ironically enough, I'm back to a tiny screen. I do all my stuff on an iPad Pro now.
Wow.
So it's the same size as screen, but like, and probably about 1/6 of the weight. But so that was that, and I was on it for a good few months. I was trying to remember how long I was on it for, but seasons did change. So it went from being freezing cold outside to being quite nice. So it's probably, I think it was like 3 or 4 months I was on it for.
Was
maybe.
it only that long?
I don't know. It might have been longer. I really can't remember because it was that long ago. It was.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, I was on it for 3 years.
Yeah,
we were in Toronto.
That's a good run.
we were in Toronto for 8 months, where it should have been 6. It overran. Yeah, maybe there was a time. I thought you were in it until because. Oh man, yeah, it's difficult putting it all together.
I remember that I moved upstairs to work on Resident Evil Afterlife, and you were still around because I remember you popped up to say hello to me.
Yeah,
and we had a wee chat. So
maybe the boarding was we were boarding late into it, but the boards became sort of re-edited regurgitations of things, and it was patching stuff together because there was a few rewrites on the go. I mean, we'll get into that later, but yeah, there were always boards to do, even though I had design stuff to do as well. And I was trying to balance that, and that's why you came along. Basically, you helped out a great deal.
Because it ended up being because I started off doing that, and then I think I basically ended up drawing boards, which was nice. I got to do some of the Casa Loma sequence, a wee bit of the opening. It was basically just kind of revisions and stuff that just needed done because Oscar was, very busy with a lot of other stuff as well. So it was kind of nice actually, because usually it's just me.
I know
but it can't just be me on a film doing everything myself. And then it was like, this isn't entirely my responsibility here. I get to just come along for the ride a wee bit.
It's always better to have a team, always.
Yeah.
Sure, that's true. Yeah, I actually have them with me. I had the 4 books that had been published. I mean, we worked on these books. I lent one away. I don't know why I don't have number 2, but I know I had to go back into my mail and hard drive to see when I worked on it. And I started, I think we talked about this and Oscar confirmed, it was prior to the movie getting greenlit. I worked like from May 2008 through September 2008. And they had just left for Toronto or something like that. And so I was just doing the boards prior to getting it greenlit or something like that, I think.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this today. When we first met, had you worked on it already? Because I suddenly remember we met in LA, and I remember seeing examples of your other work and being impressed with it. But it suddenly occurred to me, like, had you not started working on it there?
When I met you, I was just starting. That was the first time I knew anything about it, and I honestly didn't know anything about the comic or anything. And this is when I promptly went and got the books and read them, and they were really fun. And and then so I think I did. I went back and I looked through my files, and I did like. I just have sort of memories of the bits that I really love that stick out to me. Like, I did the opening sequence with the Scott Pilgrim coming out of the guitar and the love cloud and riding on the bus. And like when he first meets Ramona and their first kiss. And when he jumps out the window behind Kieran Culkin, which I love. Yeah, they were moments. And then like another one that always sticks in my mind is when Knives Chow is stalking them and she leaves her hand on the print on the window, I think that it did like the first guitar, Battle of the Bands, the first competition or first confrontation.
With Matthew Patel?
No, not the fight. I think the only fight thing that I worked on was, again, the Casa Loma bit, the skateboarding bit. Because that stuff, I remember Edgar showing me the stuff that was being worked out in stunts with Michael Cera, and I think he showed me footage from the stunt choreography with Michael Cera and the Matthew Patel character while we were in the middle of that. So, like, oftentimes with these movies, they're not relying on my mad martial arts skills to figure out the fight scenes, which I don't have. And so it's really, I don't, like, I'll do a pass on fight scenes, but that's really it goes to the stunt department really quickly, I think, at least for me.
But you never, sadly, you never joined us in Toronto. You were remote, weren't you?
Yeah.
And we've only actually met once properly, and it was in LA, wasn't it? That first time.
Yes, because then
we've talked a lot since. We've done a lot because we've worked since. But
because I ended up working directly with Edgar on that, and I think, as I was telling you yesterday, Oscar, they were on some press junket, and so he would come in and out of town, and or I'd send stuff off, or we'd correspond over email and things like that.
I can start this story earlier than that though, because the first time I came into, I'd heard that there was a project called Scott Pilgrim that Edgar was being approached to do, and that's as much as I knew until the first time I knew anything about it, knew properly what it was the existing books, which I think there was only 3 at that point, were delivered to me without any explanation whatsoever by, I think that it was by the production company, Mark Platt Productions. I think they sent them, and it wasn't Edgar's production company in the UK. And it's like, oh, I guess I'm working on Scott Pilgrim then. And then I started reading them, and the first one especially, I kind of got the idea. I thought, oh, I see why they've gone to Edgar. This is kind of a 20-something. It's got a spaced vibe. It's a slacker sort of thing. And then it got to the end of the book, and it's the Patel fight. And my eyes just got wider and wider. And I was like, we're going to get to do this? This is Street Fighter shit. This is amazing. And I was really excited about what we could do. It was very much in my wheelhouse. The kind of I'm an anime fan, and certain anime, but it was definitely the first anime film I ever saw was Akira, and like a lot of people in the UK, in the Western world, Akira was the first one that was released, properly on cinemas, and me and Edgar were there, basically in Bristol, watching it, and I think it was an animation festival, and it blew us away. So I've been a fan since then of that particular style. And there's been a few things along the way that have really piqued my interest, but games have as well. I had a gaming background, so then me and Edgar had our first interview, our first meeting about it, and it was interesting. He was sort of tentatively, trying to see what I thought of it, and it was so great because we both got really excited, because I said, I kind of see it, like I want to do a handmade kind of look to it, like it should have this sort of handmade quality, like a rough, because there's something about those comics, the first ones especially, where it's quite rushed artwork, but there's an innocence and an energy about it, and I wanted to see if that could be captured, and Edgar got so excited because he was on exactly the same page. That's exactly what he wanted to do. So I vividly remember us like getting a bit giddy, like we realizing we both wanted this thing to be this way, and then the journey started really there, and it was a full year, I think, of boarding and design work, meeting, doing tests, live action tests, doing VFX tests. Before we got to Toronto, there was we'd been on it for a full year, and Edgar was doing other stuff. There was other stuff going on, but my full-time job was Scott Pilgrim, and there was a lot of work to do. There was a lot, because there was it yet to be greenlit, so it was all prep to get the green light, and Edgar wanted to go in armed with as many boards of all the action sequences as possible. And there was a very different ending. It was just very, there was not the ending that was reshot. There was a different action piece. There was a different final fight. And all of this, to go back to how it tied up with the original material, the original book, Edgar had met up with Brian a long time prior to this, and I think he'd only had one book out maybe by then, or perhaps two, and he gave an outline of his story to Edgar and Michael. It ended up being Michael Bacall who co-wrote it, and there was an outline of how Brian Lee O'Malley was going to tell the story, and I'm sure you guys know, but the first third of the film, I would say, is pretty much identical to the books, and then they split, and that's essentially how many books were written. And Brian Lee O'Malley was very heavily involved. We went to him Edgar would go to him all the time. I mined him for information as well, and he was brilliantly generous with us. He was a fantastic person to work with. Rob, was he around when you were there?
Yeah, no, he was around, and he was.
Because he came in a lot. We got him to do some work on the film as well, much to his agent's annoyance, I think. But we got him to do some actual artwork that appears in the movie.
Yeah, I loved his headlines.
Very generous with his time.
I remember the headlines in the newspaper store. There was so many wee details that were so funny. I just remember one of the headlines in the Toronto Star was "I'm cold," because it was like -30 outside. And it was
so the books and the film go their separate ways, and Brian absolutely wanted that to happen. He wanted to do his own thing, he wanted to tell his own story, and but by the time I'd got to Toronto, and it's still, I think I'm right in saying it still hadn't properly been greenlit yet. It was definitely, it was that sort of negotiation period about budgets and things, I think. But we were all set up in Toronto, and we were all ready to go. And even though a lot of boards had been done, there was a lot to design as well. There was a lot of toing and froing with the fight coordination. We were sort of we had the amazing opportunities to work with the stunt team, and I was so happy to be able to work with those guys, and it informed all of us. We all informed. We made as much a team effort as we possibly could, and I think it really benefits. And we had a great VFX team on the other side of it. That was the third year of me on Scott Pilgrim, was just the post-production. Because there was an awful lot of work to do after that. After we'd finished shooting, there was, almost the entire year's worth of work just on 2D animation, which I mostly designed myself. But I needed a team. So there was a team that was built up around me of animators, and we got that through. And amazing work from those guys who really helped me out, because I desperately needed help on that. And but that was a whole process in itself, was a 2D department alongside the VFX department, and making that work.
Welcome back.
Now it's
Yeah,
the
the
end
interview-
of the now it's the end of the episode.
The interview is over, and
I hope you enjoyed it.
just as you guys heard earlier, I have yet again, without any small talk, gotten straight to the end of the episode.
And here we are. We hope you liked the episode, and this is usually the part of the episode where we talk about the next episode.
Yeah.
And what comes next is part 2, because we definitely stopped. I'm sure Parth found a logical conclusion,
Yeah, I tried my best.
like a place that this interview ended. And so then if you listen to this interview, you want to continue, wait 7 days till next Sunday. It's the day where we release episodes. Church Day, Day of the Lord. And so next Sunday. And then the subsequent 2 Sundays, there will be no episodes about Scott Pilgrim versus the world.
We hope you like this episode. We hope you can rate us 5 stars on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Yeah.
Give us a good
if you guys
review.
if you update Spotify, then you'll be able to give us
Yeah.
the stars, and we would like you to do that. And
We think we deserve it, you know?
And on Apple Podcasts, you write us a little review. That'd be nice. It helps.
Yeah.
Parth and I are trying to make enough money to quit our day jobs, and so we need to monetize. So tell your friends about the show.
Help us.
Yep. It's only a matter of time until we sell out, and we have to start filling ad time. So enjoy the commercial-free radio while it lasts.
All right. Well, I think we're out. We're tapped out.
I have a splitting headache.
But we're really excited about the next month. Don't get us wrong, guys. Part 2 is going to be better than ever. You know
Parth,
what I
are you
mean?
gonna be amped for next week to compensate for this current level of drab?
So amped. What? All right. Bye, listeners.